For attending the Montclair City Council meeting, we'll begin the meeting, and we'll start the meeting with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask the city clerk to introduce those two individuals.
Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Josh Matlock, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Councilmember Mendez.
Since Councilman Lopez is not here, I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, you said
Okay.
Mendez.
Oh, Mendez? I'm sorry, Mendez. Okay.
All right, let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, in this season of love and giving, we remember the love and the gifts that you have given to us so generously. May we emulate your grace as we consider others as more important than ourselves. As we gather tonight, we acknowledge the reality that there are definitely needs and concerns within our city. May we strive together in unity to build a better Montclair. We humbly ask for wisdom and direction for those elected and appointed here tonight, that they may lead and govern well. We pray for your hand of protection over the city. We pray for safety for all first responders who work selflessly and tirelessly to keep us well. Thank you for the privilege and honor to serve the people of Montclair, and we thank you for entrusting this work to us. Bless us, Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Councilmember Mendez.
All right, if everybody would please place your right hand over your heart, and please join me as we salute our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we'll get roll call.
I would like to state for the record that Councilmember Lopez has been excused and will not be in attendance at tonight's meeting. Councilmember Mendez.
Here.
Councilmember Rue.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez. Here. And Mayor Dutre.
Here.
Thank you.
Next item, we have no presentation, so we'll go right to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the city council on any of the consent calendar items. Obviously, public hearing will be separate, dealt with separately, or any item that's not on the agenda. And if any of the items on the agenda, we can't discuss it or comment. Based on comments received, you'll have 5 minutes. And City Clerk, do we have any comments?
Yes, our first speaker is Robert Vivar.
I want to thank everybody
Hello.
for the opportunity to speak. So I want to start off by saying I grew up in this community. I received all my primary education from preschool to high school in Montclair, and they taught me something about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I never thought that I would witness the atrocities that have occurred these past few months, not in my country and certainly not in my community. Terrorists have infiltrated our city, and yesterday morning I personally witnessed an abduction of 3 people at a bus stop on Holt and Ramona. With regards to ICE and CBP operations, the situation is not getting better, it's getting worse. ICE enforcement is ramping up, and it's only a matter of time until we see them implementing wartime tactics as we've seen in other cities in California or nationwide. Mass gunmen and unmarked vehicles are operating freely while abducting, assaulting, terrorizing, and trafficking our community members with impunity. All of this is being done without due process. The city's motto is, "The people are the city." Well, city members are being disappeared off the streets. That can't be good for the city. I can't understand how this is happening, but it can only happen if the city is unaware of operations or they are cooperating. Human rights violations and potential trafficking is occurring in our city, and this is not an agenda item. That's appalling. I urge council members to do something to prevent this type of illegal enforcement. We cannot allow these thugs to continue to terrorize community members and violate our constitutional rights without consequence. We cannot wait to act before it's too late. As it stands, our inaction is an act of complicity. Montclair must show that it stands with our community when it matters most. We started this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we all know how it ends. But without due process, there is no justice, not for anyone, not for all. Something must be done to address this issue. We are in a state of emergency. If the people are the city is under attack and must defend itself. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Roxana Gracia with Assemblymember Michelle Rodriguez's office.
Good evening, Mayor, council members,
Good evening.
city manager, staff, members of the public. My name is Roxana Gracia, and I am the district director for Assemblymember Michelle Rodriguez. Happy to be here as always. I wanted to first thank you for allowing me to invite the public. The last time I was here to our to Assembly members Thanksgiving turkey giveaway that happened in the city of Ontario, I was able to see some Montclair residents there. So we were able to service over 750 families that day. The need is definitely there. So as we continue to go, we will try to grow this event every year because the need is there, and it was evident that day. I know that there's been some other turkey giveaways happening in the community, and that really just displays the evidence of the need in our community. So we will continue to host events that help out, especially those most in need, and that is why I'm here today, and also to invite anyone and all to come to Assembly members' holiday open house and toy drive that is happening this Wednesday. It is scheduled to begin at 4 p.m., but we will be there till 7 p.m. It is a toy drive, but it is not mandatory. If you want to just come, check out our district office. We will have tamales. We will have hot chocolate and coffee available for all those that want to come, meet the staff, see where we work, and also inquire about any state resources. This will be an opportunity for the community to come and meet the staff in the place that we work every day, and to ask any questions and address any issues that might be had. I like to pride myself on always making myself available, and I'll leave my phone number for our district office here. So if anybody would like to inquire about this event or anything that might be happening in the community that you would like to alert us on, the number is 909-902-9606. My personal email address is my first name, which is Roxana, Roxana_Gracia, not to be confused with Garcia. I don't know how many times somebody has told me that they sent me an email and I did not get it. So it's gracia@asm.ca.gov. So please come out Wednesday. If you can provide a toy, please bring one. Those toys will be given out to community members that are in need, families. We have reached out to all of our school districts in our district, which includes the Ontario Montclair School District, to be able to provide these toys that we will be collecting to those families most in need. I don't know if I will see you before the Christmas holiday break, but I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, it's been a pleasure to serve this community for the last year. Tomorrow's December 2nd, which is a full calendar year from when Assemblymember Michelle Rodriguez was sworn into office. And during her first calendar year as Assembly member, we were able to successfully host an event here at Montclair City premises, and it was an awesome event. So we look forward to 2026, and I just want to let you know that we wish you happy holidays, and thank you for always opening your doors to our office. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I have no more speaker cards.
Okay. So the next item is public hearings. And we will start with, we have three items, actually, public hearings. So we'll start the first one, which is A, and this is regarding consider ordinance number 25-1013, amending the Montclair Municipal Code to regulate the parking of oversized vehicles and unattached trailers on public streets. So who's going to take the lead on the presentation?
I think I will tonight.
And then, of course, I'll open the public hearing.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Dutray and members of the council, and members of the public and staff. This item was continued from the November 17th meeting when we intended to do the first reading of this proposed ordinance, and so here we are tonight with the presentation. This item, if you'll recall, we've talked about this at least a couple of times in the last couple of years. Going back to 23, there was the first workshop that we held on this proposal, And then we had one last May in 25, of this year, in 25, a second workshop. And if you're wondering what happened in 24, well, that's the year we were doing the general plan, and that occupied most of our time and efforts through that year. It was a long one. So tonight, we will be making a presentation via PowerPoint presentation by Mr. Eckert. You know him as James Eckert, Jim Eckert. He's with the law firm DePere, Rosenblit, and Litvak out of Los Angeles, and he is special counsel to the city on a number of items, including code enforcement, police matters, and zoning information from time to time with the planning department. So, but before he makes his presentation tonight, I wanted to indicate there's a couple other items on your dais tonight. One of them is a group of pictures. It was taken one day in November. That's probably the black and white one there with a number of vehicles that we are concerning ourselves with tonight. The second item is a color picture taken today. That one shows Mills Avenue. It's looking north, so to the right of the picture is the area that's next to the old Cardenas site. It's vacant today because of street sweeping, so the vehicles that are on the other side of the street you see in the picture on the left, those are the vehicles that are typically parked here on this street. So just as an example for you. You might be thinking that that other side is the city of Pomona. Well, technically, it's still part of our street up to the curb on the other side of the median that's in the picture. So we can talk about those later on after the presentation. And then if you have any questions about the staff report, we'd be glad to answer anything that you might have in mind. And without any further hesitation, I'm going to introduce Mr. Eckert to make the presentation via the PowerPoint presentation at this point.
Thank you. And Honorable Mayor and council members, as Mr. Diaz indicated, here to present the presentation on the proposed ordinance which is seeking to regulate oversized vehicle parking and unattached trailers within our city. Just to start off with, we look at what the proposed scope of this is. And again, what it is to address a specific issue that comes as a result of the parking of unattached trailers and oversized vehicles on our public streets. So what it's not designed to do is to address the parking of these vehicles on private property. This is only right now focusing on the parking of these vehicles on public rights-of-way and streets. Specifically, the California Vehicle Code does provide the city with authority to regulate the parking of vehicles on public streets. That's where this is coming from, is from that authorization that's granted by the state through the Vehicle Code. We are, as I indicated, regulating oversized vehicles. What constitutes an oversized vehicle is based off the length, width, and height of the vehicle. So it's to be distinguished from what we already regulate as far as oversized vehicles, which is typically a regulation based off the weight of a vehicle. What's being proposed is any vehicle that would exceed 22 feet in length, 8 feet in height, or 8 feet in width would constitute an oversized vehicle. And just to kind of give you some examples, these are some examples of what compact, mid-size, and full-size vehicles typically are. And as the council can see, your compacts typically range between 10 and 14 feet in length. Full-size vehicles are typically 16 to 18 feet in length. And again, what we're looking at is regulating above 22 feet in length. Width is anywhere from 5.5 feet to about 7 feet. And again, we're looking at regulating those vehicles that are over 8 feet in width. And your average height of a vehicle from compact to full size ranges from 4.5 feet to about 6 feet in height. And again, we are looking at regulating those vehicles that are over 8 feet in height. What are the typical concerns that we're actually looking to regulate? And there are a variety of issues primarily relating to health and safety issues, although not completely. One is that there's a decreased line of sight visibility as a result of these oversized vehicles. Here's a picture of a vehicle where you can see there's a vehicle in front of the truck that is pulling out of a driveway. Very difficult to see, especially along a route where somebody might be traveling at a higher rate of speed. This vehicle is in excess of 22 feet in length, and you're only seeing that passenger car pull out in front of it once it's already basically hitting the roadway, making it dangerous for people to be able to stop and see those vehicles that are pulling out. Aside from the decreased line of sight visibility, we're also talking about obstruction of traffic control devices. Those would be the oversized vehicles that block visibility of stop signs, traffic lights, sometimes detour. I was actually traveling on a road today where there was a big rig vehicle that was parked in front of a detour sign because they had closed the freeway, making it difficult for anybody to follow the detour signs. And so that's one of the issues that we're looking at addressing as well. Aside from that, we're also looking at reduced on-street parking. As the council is aware, there are a number of issues that have already caused a reduction of on-street parking, or at least increased the demand for on-street parking, which includes a variety of issues, including the state's desire for an increase in accessory dwelling units, where they've now obliterated basically the city's ability to mandate off-street parking. So there's a greater demand for the on-street parking. And as you can see, again, we're talking about vehicles that exceed 22 feet in length, which typically takes up anywhere from 2.5 to 3 passenger-sized vehicle parking spaces. And so allowing these oversized vehicles to park on the streets can take up anywhere, again, from typically 2.5 to 3 or even 4, if we're talking even larger sized vehicles, parking spaces which our residents and our business communities and the visitors to our city would typically tend to use. In addition to those 3 concerns, there's also a decreased drivable roadway space, meaning that, again, because the width of this vehicle sometimes exceeds normal passenger vehicle widths by 1 to 2 feet, you're actually the drivable roadway space that other vehicles who are utilizing our roadways have is actually decreased, thereby creating additional hazards. So these are the primary concerns that we're looking at with respect to the oversized vehicles. Unattached trailers have a very similar concern. That is, again, you can see here in the photograph on the left-hand side, an unattached trailer with a boat on it that's parked very close to the curb. Because of that, there's going to be a decreased line of sight visibility of anybody who may be walking across that street for the vehicles that are driving along that roadway. And over on the right-hand side, you can see an unattached trailer, again, taking up an inordinate amount of parking spaces from other people who would need to use that on-street parking. Now, one of the things that has come up since we first started analyzing these regulations for purposes of the city of Montclair is that the state itself has passed AB 413. Assembly Bill 413, commonly known as the daylighting law, mandates that vehicles now be parked 20 feet from your curbs. And the purpose of that was to address some of the same issues that we're talking about in our ordinance. The way that it's currently written is that the daylighting law requires 20 feet from the crosswalk or 15 feet from a crosswalk with a curb extension. But that doesn't address all of the issues that we're dealing with. And I'm going to explain that in a second, but it is important to note that AB 413 specifically states that it is not intending to decrease the city's ability to regulate and be more restrictive with respect to these types of regulations in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our community. Now, just to give you an example, here's a couple of examples of how AB 413 actually applies. AB 413, number one, is explicitly designed only to address the parking on the side to which the traffic is approaching. So if you look at all of these photographs, the AB 413 only applies to the vehicles that are traveling on the right-hand side of each of these streets and not on the left-hand side, because it's primarily concerned about visibility on crosswalks. But as you can see on the left-hand side is prior to AB 413. On the right-hand side are different examples of post-AB 413 requiring in the top right-hand corner and in the middle on the right-hand side the 20 feet of clearance from the crosswalk, one being an unmarked crosswalk, one being a marked crosswalk, and then the bottom one is where we have that curb extension requiring now only 15 feet from the curb extension, because again, from a visibility standpoint, because of that curb extension, you'll actually see them a little bit quicker. But this is an example of what AB 413 does. This is with respect to just passenger vehicles. What the state was concerned about primarily was, hey, with passenger vehicles, your typical cars, 20 feet should be sufficient distance for us to be able to gain back the visibility issues that we have. Here's just another example. showing you with the red on the left-hand side where your visibility would be obstructed as a result of that vehicle parking too close to the crosswalk. On the right-hand side is post AB 413, allowing for that greater visibility of that approaching vehicle to be able to see both sides of the crosswalk and anybody that's crossing in. Here's another example. And this example, again, on the left-hand side is pre-AB 413. On the right-hand side is where a pedestrian would be if that vehicle was still parked in that location. And again, you can see that that person is already in the street, in the crosswalk, but invisible to the driver of the approaching vehicle. Those are some of the concerns that we're trying to address, but we have greater concerns because we're not talking about just the passenger vehicles. We're now talking about oversized vehicles, over 8 feet in height, over 22 feet in length, over 8 feet in width, which create a greater obstruction to that visibility that we're trying to address. Again, just showing you this picture, showing you 20 feet alone would not be sufficient to address the obstructed visibility that this type of a vehicle would actually create. The city has a variety of options. We did discuss these during the various workshops. One is the city could do a complete ban. The city, like many other jurisdictions, could take the position and say all oversized vehicles are going to be banned within our city. They cannot park on our public rights of way with limited exceptions that we'd be required to allow. The city could do restricted hours, meaning that throughout the city could say, hey, oversized vehicles are not allowed to park between this hour and this hour, or they could, whether that's eliminating it only during the overnight hours or doing it during other parts of the day, but basically it's by restricting the hours and allowing them during other hours. That doesn't necessarily address the health and safety concerns because we'd still be allowing them during certain hours, but it would mitigate it to some degrees. You could do restricted areas whereby we allow oversized vehicles to park in certain areas of the city, but prohibit them in other areas of the city. And these are all different options that different cities have actually taken. Lastly would be allowing for some type of a parking permit. Most cities allow for the parking permits for purposes of recreational vehicles and not typically for other types of oversized vehicles. But again, these are all options that the city has. And as you can see by the charts that are on the next two screens, these are different options that different jurisdictions, both close and far, have actually taken. Some cities have gone so far as doing a complete ban on oversized vehicles parking on public streets, whereas other cities have taken the less aggressive approach to allow them either in limited areas of the city or to allow them in during limited hours. Again, by doing those, you are not being as aggressive in protecting the concerns that we have, but this ordinance that we're proposing to is really a balancing act. It's trying to balance people's conditional rights, people's limited rights to use public rights of way. Nothing is unfettered. No citizen out there has the right to use our public streets for anything they want, in any manner in which they want. We regulate them heavily through the vehicle code and through our parking restrictions. But to balance that limited right against the health and safety concerns that we just discussed earlier in this presentation. So now coming forward to the actual ordinance itself that we're proposing, what are we proposing? Number one, just to go over it again, definition of an oversized vehicle would be exceeding 22 feet in length, 8 feet in height, 8 feet in width, or any combination thereof. And we do explicitly exempt pickup trucks. So pickup trucks as defined by the vehicle code would be exempt from this oversized things. As you're well aware, there are newer pickup trucks that are coming out every year that are larger in size, but those would be explicitly exempt from this particular ordinance. RVs would also count as oversized vehicles. So all recreational vehicles, which would include camp trailers, fifth wheel trailers, mobile homes, ATVs, boats, or other types of vehicles that are designed and used for purposes of residential purpose, those would be considered oversized vehicles irrespective of the actual size of the vehicle. What's being proposed is a ban of these oversized vehicles within residential districts at all times with limited exceptions, and we'll go over what those exceptions are in a minute. Whereas in the non-residential areas, it would be a restriction on time. So this is kind of a combination of some of the options that I was explaining earlier. In this particular instance, what's being proposed by staff is that the oversized vehicles would be prohibited in the non-residential areas only during the nighttime hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., and again, with limited exceptions that we'll go over. So this is not a complete ban throughout the city. It is a combination of a ban in residential areas and a restricted hours in the non-residential areas. And again, there are going to be exceptions. With respect to unattached trailers, those would be banned throughout the city on public streets. Again, remember, we're only talking about on public streets. This would not address attached trailers. So if these trailers are attached to a vehicle, then we're not concerned about them as far as being a complete ban. They would then fall potentially under the oversized vehicle, depending on what the length, width, and height of the attached trailer and the vehicle that's hauling it would be. To go over what some of the limited exceptions are, if there's active loading or unloading of an RV or of an oversized vehicle, they would be allowed to do that. So if a vehicle is coming to do a delivery, if a vehicle is coming to do services, whether that is delivering Amazon stuff or whether it's delivering furniture that you may have ordered from a retailer, or whether it's a plumber or a contractor or any other person who's coming to do an actual service where they're loading and unloading, they would allow it to be there. Performance of a service on that same block would also be allowed. So going back to the plumber, the electrician, the contractor, construction people who are coming by, who are parking in those areas that are oversized, are allowed to do that while they are performing the service, and so long as they're performing the service on the same block. We want to kind of limit them to the area where they're actually going to be performing the service. Government and public utility vehicles are exempt. School buses, while loading, unloading, and waiting, would be exempt. Emergency breakdowns. If you have an oversized vehicle that breaks down, that would be allowed to remain there for a period of 24 hours. At that point, really the vehicle would need to be towed or fixed or moved otherwise. If it's engaged in an activity where you can get a public works permit, so in many instances you might be doing some type of a longer term project which might be connected with some type of a permitted construction activity, might be connected with some other type of special event permit or some other type of activity where the city has permitted it, they might be able to get a public works permit to allow for, in essence, an encroachment onto that public right-of-way for that oversized vehicle. And then lastly, with respect specifically to recreational vehicles, we are proposing a permit program. We'll discuss that in a second, but that would be another exemption where if you have a permit pursuant to the city's RV permit program, they would obviously be allowed to be parked on the public roadway as well. We are not creating any exceptions for attached trailers because there's no need. If they are attached, they're not covered by the ordinance other than if they are oversized. Okay? So again, this is only addressing unattached trailers and then oversized vehicles. So again, if you do have a trailer and the trailer is attached to a vehicle, it would be allowed to be parked on the street, but would potentially still be regulated based off the height, width, and length of that vehicle and the trailer. Additional restrictions here we're looking at with respect to the prohibited locations. So aside from the overall where you can park, assuming that you get a permit or you otherwise are exempt from the permit for purpose of service or any of these other things, there are specific locations where we are still prohibiting them from being parked. One is within 50 feet of an intersection. You may ask, why 50 feet of the intersection when we already have the Assembly Bill, which prohibits them from being within 20 feet. It's exactly what I explained earlier, is that oversized vehicles create a greater risk and a greater health and safety hazard than regular vehicles that would be subject to the Assembly Bill. So we believe that an additional 30 feet provides for additional clearance and additional visibility, again, to protect the people who are walking down our sidewalks, people who are crossing crosswalks, preventing the obstruction of our traffic control devices. And so we believe that a greater distance is actually required. Within 5 feet of a curb cut of a driveway, this is still the same thing. We're trying to prevent these oversized vehicles from being parked too close to a driveway. As you saw from that prior picture, that would not have been impacted by the Assembly Bill because it wasn't about being next to a crosswalk. It was about a driveway. We're still concerned about vehicles that are pulling in and out of driveways, people who are walking in those areas, or someone who may be trying to pull into that driveway, right, who has to go past that oversized vehicle and can't see that there are pedestrians walking down that driveway. It'd be lovely to think that, hey, if they just slow down, there wouldn't be a problem, but we know that's not always the case, unfortunately. And so one of the roles of government is to try and prevent these sort of hazards where we can. They wouldn't be able to park in any manner that otherwise blocks traffic lanes or where they interfere again with critical sight lines for driveways, alleys, and streets, or other manners that block or hinder visibility of traffic control devices. And again, those could be any number of those traffic control devices. And then we would allow the city engineer to be able to post additional specific locations where there might be a hazardous condition as a result of these oversized vehicles being parked there. And again, that would require the city engineer to post appropriate signage at the locations where we're trying to prohibit anything that's not already explicitly spelled out in the code. All of these, however, all of these restrictions would be subject to the posting of the required signage. So those are signage that's still going to go up throughout the city to advise people who are entering into the city about the restrictions that the city has so that they know before they actually park. With respect to the RVs, this is with respect, again, to recreational vehicles specifically, the city's proposing to do a permitting program. As part of that permitting program, residents and any resident within the city would be allowed to apply for these RV parking permits. Residents would also be allowed to apply for the RV parking permits on behalf of their guests. Okay, so we provide for different types of permits, but it would always be tied back to a resident within our community. They would be, under the proposed ordinance, they would get 10 short-term permits and 2 long-term RV permits per calendar year. And this would be per address or per residential unit. Short-term is 72 consecutive hours. And if they wanted to get multiple short-term permits, there would have to be a 24-hour break in between permit 1 and permit 2. That is, they wouldn't be able to combine 2 short-term permits to allow for 144 hours consecutively. With respect to the long term, that's for 7 consecutive calendar days, again, with a 24-hour break in between permit 1 and permit 2. So again, as to prevent them from keeping the vehicle out there for 14 consecutive days. Again, as I indicated, this is all about balancing, right? And it's difficult. It's difficult for the council, it's difficult for the community, because we are trying to find this balance where we can still provide our community, business owners, business operators, our guests, and our residents, the ability to actually utilize our public streets for the purpose of parking. But we have to balance that against the health and safety issues. And so that is the primary function behind this ordinance, is really to address the health and safety hazards that are presented explicitly because of oversized vehicles. But again, it is also to address the lack of on-street parking that everybody now faces as well. This ordinance specifically focuses on improving health and safety by addressing the diminished visibility that we talked about. It also addresses I know that when we've had the workshops previously, there have been some concerns and questions about, you know, hey, we'd like to allow for additional exemptions. We'd like to allow for more unattached trailers on the streets or to do other things. And in looking at this, you know, in addressing, aside from the health and safety issues, we are trying to address the lack of on-street parking. And the reality is, you know, again, as I indicated, most of these unattached trailers and or the oversized vehicles take up anywhere from 2.5 to up to 4 and 5 parking spaces. There are more people who are actually trying to utilize the street for their own passenger vehicles than we have residents who are trying to use the street for their oversized vehicles. Again, for oversized vehicles, aside from the recreational vehicles. 2, again, this is not a complete ban. And as you saw from the charts that I put up, there are other jurisdictions that have taken that option. They have taken the option of being more aggressive with it and doing complete bans throughout the city, and that's not what's being proposed here. Rather, what we're proposing is a ban within the residential areas, but in the non-residential areas, allowing for parking during 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. and only prohibiting the parking between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. And then with respect to the recreational vehicles, allowing for a variety of permits between long-term and short-term that our residents would be able to obtain, and they would be able to allow them to be used by guests. So if they have family members that are coming over, who are coming over in an RV, they'd be allowed to get one of these permits on behalf of their guests. Again, trailers can still be parked in the street. There was concern raised previously about the trailers being parked in the street. They can be parked in the street if they're attached to a motor vehicle. Now, they may still be subject to the oversize regulations that we're talking about, depending on what the size of these vehicles are jointly, over 22 feet in length, over 8 feet in height, over 8 feet in width, or if it's pursuant to a public works permit. So again, if they need to do it for specific purposes, where they need to do it for a short-term sort of job that they may be doing, they can get a permit from Public Works to have that vehicle parked there. Not very different than when we do, when construction crews, for example, sometimes have to put waste containers or other types of bins on the street. They come in, they get an encroachment permit, we can issue that. It's for a short, limited duration. But by doing that, also, the city can take other precautions. We can know where there may be these oversized vehicles, and if we need to, we can figure out whether we need to do any other type of implementing of traffic control issues to try and mitigate the concerns that would be raised by a short-term parking of one of these oversized vehicles pursuant to a public works permit. So that is, again, the main issues that we're trying to address on all those things. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions that the council may have.
Well, great. I think what we'll do is, since this is a public hearing, we'll open it up first for the public to speak before it comes back to council for questions and comments. So, Andrew, we have members of the public that have submitted a card to speak. Do you have anything?
I don't have any cards.
Any members of the public wish to address the city council on this item at this time? This is an opportunity to do so. Now, I don't see anybody want to address the city council, so we'll go ahead and close it, and we'll come back to council for questions. I got some questions I wanted to ask you real quick. On you don't have a page number in your slide. You said definition of oversized vehicles. I don't know if you can find it or not.
It's over 22 feet in length, over
Yeah.
8 feet in height, and
And
over
you said
8
there's an
feet width.
exception for pickup trucks. And I was trying to understand what that meant.
That if it's defined as a pickup truck under the vehicle code, it would be exempt from the height, weight,
So
and
the
length.
pickup truck is higher than 8 feet, or
If it's a pickup truck and it's
If
over
it's-
8 feet in height, or if it's over
the
22
wheels are
feet
higher.
in length,
What about SUVs?
SUVs are not pickup trucks. So again, pickup trucks are specifically defined by the vehicle code. And so there's an exemption for that in part because of how state law works with respect to pickup trucks.
Okay, so only applies to pickup trucks, but not to SUVs
Correct.
or let's say those vans like the Ford,
Sprinter vans.
the vans that that are used for people use for utilities or plumbers.
Right, so
and they
those
have
are like
ladders on top
Sprinter
of that.
vans.
Excuse me?
Those are like Sprinter vans.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why we chose the 8 feet, because most of those are at around 8 feet. So again, our oversize would be over 8 feet.
Right.
So if they're at 8 feet or below, they would be exempt from this
What about if
regulation.
they have ladders on top of it?
Ladders would not count. So over the height is actually defined by our code to go from the lowest point of the wheel
Okay, so
to the highest point of the vehicle itself. Or if you have something on the top of the vehicle that can hold cargo or passengers, like a cab or some other type of storage container up there, those would count. But for example, if you just put a piece of luggage on the top of the car, that's not going to be counted. We count the
Okay.
vehicle.
all right, so that okay. But again, pickup trucks, especially as some folks have these big tires in the pickup trucks, and they're much higher than 8 feet. That will be there's an
Exempt.
exception to that to the CVC code.
Correct.
Okay, I have more
And also,
questions.
if I can, just to point out, with respect to the pickup trucks, they do present a little less of a hazard because the entirety of the body of that vehicle is not over height or over length. You can see over
Right,
typically the back part of it, so it
yeah.
allows for more visibility.
Yeah, I can see the argument. Okay, I'm going to start with Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Thank you. So I have quite a few questions, so I'll try to break them down. My first question is, as far as safety goes, what is the benefit of having the restriction between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m.? I would think there would be more traffic during the day and less at nighttime.
What's the purpose of prohibiting it during those nighttime hours?
Correct.
And again, the idea with that is it's greater impact because, again, of darkness and of other issues. So while there may be less traffic, there's also greater pedestrians that might be walking around that aren't as visible, or people pulling out of those driveways. And so that was the genesis of it.
Okay, and then on that same note, I noticed that some cities have maybe like an hour that's allowed during those hours, or up to 3 or 4 hours. And my concern would be, let's say there's a truck driver working that needs to pull over because he's tired. I don't know how common that is in our city, and maybe you can speak to that a little bit, but is that something that we might consider for those limited purposes? Because I would hate for the unintended consequence of this ordinance to be that, someone that needs to pull over does not do so.
So the ordinance itself doesn't explicitly address that particular issue. I can tell you in the well over 10 years that I've been with the city, I don't think we've ever had an issue with that, of somebody who just pulled over in order to sleep in the vehicle, that resulted in getting any type of ticket or other type of, whether it was an administrative citation, parking citation, or criminal citation. I will say that all of this is going to still come down to an enforcement-related issue, right? And that our officers are still going to have some discretion with respect to, like anything else, is this something that we're going to issue a ticket for? Is it something that they're going to issue a warning for? So I think there's still going to be a human factor in addressing, and the goal is to address these life safety issues and to address the parking issues.
And I wonder if that might count into that emergency slash truck breaking down issue.
I
Maybe
mean,
that-
again, it could potentially, but the reality is I think that's more the human factor that's going to go into the enforcement end of it.
And then that is another question I have is, as far as enforcement goes, is this going to put more or less of a toll on our officers as they're out doing the enforcement? Or is this going to be the routes that they're already going and perhaps, less vehicles to deal with?
Obviously, I'd allow staff to speak directly to that, but my expectation is it would not create any greater burden. Staff has had input on this both from police department, public works, code enforcement, planning. Everybody's been involved in this. I think the issue is still primarily we would be a reactive response to these things where we're getting complaints about oversized vehicles would be the primary factor. And then obviously, if there's any other type of imminent life safety issue, my expectation is that staff would proceed accordingly. But it's going to be either in response to complaints that we're getting or when they're already traveling the roadways. I don't think this is something that we are going to be affirmatively going out and looking for every single potential vehicle that's out there.
Okay. And my final question is, I imagine if we had an ordinance overnight that, banning SUVs, we'd have quite a few upset residents saying that they relied on the ability to own an SUV at the time they purchased it and that sort of thing. So is that anticipated to be an issue with respect to those residents that might have purchased RVs back when this wasn't an ordinance?
You're saying RVs as opposed to the SUVs?
Right,
Okay.
yeah, I was just giving an example.
Is it, look, the reality is cities change their parking restrictions and regulations all the time. And there's areas where you may have purchased property and suddenly the city puts up a preferential parking area, or the city decides to eliminate parking, both in commercial as well as in residential areas. So the reality is everybody buys vehicles to some degrees with respect to your ability to park it on public streets, with the knowledge that cities may change the parking restrictions, regulations, timeframes that apply to those public streets. If they have space on their private property, we're not impacting their ability to park it on their private property. But the reality is, yes, I mean, if someone purchased a vehicle with the hope that the city was not going to change its mind and never took it into consideration that the city might change its mind and impose restrictions on it, it's unfortunately, it's one of those kind of buyer beware sort of things. But the reality is these are public streets. The city is obligated to kind of look at these things as an entirety, and not just for the purposes of one particular individual or two individuals, but to look at it in, again, the balancing of factors of safety and their ability to use the streets.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
Of course.
Councilmember Mendez.
All right. Jim, thank you very much for the presentation. I do appreciate that.
Of course.
Just a few questions. On the proposed standards, the length 22, width 8, and height 8 also, it only requires one of those to be considered an oversized vehicle,
That is correct, yes.
Okay. If a permit is given that the permit holder would be maybe add something about like, if for 7 days, maybe that they have to clean the street because the street sweeper's already gone by, and maybe that they would be responsible for maintaining the roadway in that area. Something maybe to add to that, just a thought. And then going with that, my number one concern is enforcement and follow-up, because I feel like this type of a requirement would require the police to go and look, maybe mark the tire, come back a little bit later to see if it's moved, or, try to get a hold of the owner. Are we gonna be doing any of that? And then, I think you answered earlier, so you believe we do have the staff currently that would be able to handle this, Jason? And then, will this type of a program be self-funded if it requires more cost, for more employees to do this type of enforcement? And then, how will somebody apply for a permit during off hours? Like, will they be able to go online? And if they do, how do we prove that they're a resident or to get a permit?
So let me address it in the backwards order, if I may. With respect to the acquisition of the permits, what the city's looking at right now is an online program, a virtual program. I do work in other cities where we do similar sorts of things, and they are done online. The online has databases that it can obtain, and they would be required to provide, for example, a driver's license or some other type of proof of residency for purposes of getting the RV permits. But those are allowed to be acquired online. We're looking at potentially doing either a printable QR code that could then just be put on the vehicle, or just a virtual one if we were to have license plate recognition systems that we'd be able to just drive by and see it, so they don't have to wait for City Hall to open to come in and get a door hanger or something that hangs on the mirror. That would also allow for the unexpected guest. So if you have an unexpected guest that shows up and says, hey, I was driving through town, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but I'd like to stop over and stay at your house, no problem. I can go right online. I'd be able to get that permit, and they'd be able to park there with that permit. So from that standpoint, that's the way that would work. As far as self-funding, again, the cost of the permit, like anything else in the city, this would be a cost of a permit that we would be looking at to cover the cost of, it has to be reasonably related to both the cost of processing the program as well as for the enforcement component of it. So we're not proposing fees at this time for that. I believe that will be done at the next meeting or at a future meeting. And at that time, the fees would be set as the council desires to set them for the different types of permits, but that would typically be taken into consideration, would be the cost of enforcement as well as the cost of actually processing it. And by the way, looking at doing the online processing of these permits, hopefully we'll also keep those costs down because we won't have to have someone here at City Hall handling all these things. We won't have to be printing out the kind of more permanent sort of permits that you typically see on these things. We're trying to do it in a way that's going to keep the cost down for our community as well. With respect to the investigation, I mean, I won't go into all the details on how our enforcement's going to do investigations, but I do believe that if we show up into a residential area and there is a plumbing van that is there, I don't think this is the thing where, unless it's parked in one of these prohibited areas, i.e. too close to the curb, too close to a driveway, my expectation, and Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my expectation is that they would monitor the situation and find out what's going on. If that vehicle's still there later on, they might have to go ask questions about who that person who drives the vehicle is servicing in that area to see if it actually is servicing it. Or if we see the same plumbing vehicle or the same oversized vehicle at the same location for days and weeks on end, it might be more likely that it is belonging to someone who lives there. We can always run registration to find out who these vehicles are owned by. So we can look at a variety of different issues. Again, I think all tempered with reasonableness about the vehicles there performing services, and staff also not expending a tremendous amount of time. With respect to the first thing that you mentioned with respect to the street cleanup, right now all of these are just going to be parking tickets. So none of these are misdemeanor crimes. These are not things that people are going to have to go to court for. These are parking tickets. They will have a right to appeal it if they feel that something has gone wrong, that they didn't deserve the ticket. They have the right that everybody else would have for a parking ticket to appeal it. But there's nothing in the code right now that would authorize or mandate that someone clean our street or do something of that nature, because it's a parking ticket, as opposed to if this were something that was going into court, we could order community service, we could order different things. But right now, as a parking ticket, it would just end up being a monetary fine.
Talking about if they actually received a
I
permit.
completely understood, yeah.
If I may just add one thing, the issuance of an RV permit would not exempt them from following other applicable laws. So street sweeping days would still need to be observed. You can't park on red. And so those applicable laws will continue to apply as necessary. So they don't exempt anybody from those, following those procedures.
Correct. All of our exempt vehicles, whether it's by permit or because they are providing a service at the location or do something like that, still obviously have to comply with all other parking regulations, restrictions, and the like.
Councilmember Mendez, as it pertains to the staffing levels, that is something that we've been an integral part of this investigation, not this investigation, but this proposal. And I gathered some statistics regarding parking calls for service that we receive now without even an ordinance. And we've received approximately 224 calls in the last year and a half. Now, this is as of October. For RVs, motorhomes, travel trailers, campers, semi-trucks, box trucks, big rigs, those terms that callers use when they call. Oftentimes, because it might be protruding into the street or blocking view or parked there for too long, etc. So we're able to handle those calls. I don't anticipate this number just increasing rapidly. Maybe it might at first. There might be an effect where the general public realizes now there's laws and ordinance prohibiting this, we might receive some more calls for service, but I don't believe it would place an undue burden on staff. We have parking enforcement staff and police cadets that work during business hours during the week, and any time after that would be officers that would be assigned calls for service if a caller were to call it in. That's not counting if the officer's driving around and decides to take action on a possible violator of this and conduct an investigation. That's not including that, but I don't foresee it having a significant impact on our staff and their workload. And it would be a non-priority one call anyway, so if there were other priority calls occurring, it wouldn't be something an officer would break for and handle. It would be something it would handle after that, if that answers. Thank you.
And I think for clarification, Ed, City Manager Starr, unlike the street sweep enforcement program, which is pretty proactive, and our cadets go out and patrol the streets for that, we're not doing the same thing here as you and I have talked about. Am I correct? Just to clarify.
That is correct.
You're not
This
going to
is
have
not-
staff
yeah.
go out and start driving around the whole town and look for violators on a regular basis. This is reactive. This is based on complaints. Am I correct, Ed?
That is correct.
Or staff sees a very visible health and safety serious issue needs to be dealt with. That's how we're going to respond to it.
Yes, this is generally based on responses to calls from residents or observation by an officer if he sees an egregious violation.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's go to Councilmember Rue.
Questions I have several here, some have already been answered. In regard to RVs or motorhomes, we're at a time of year where people may visit. They arrive just before Thanksgiving, leave sometime after New Year. According to this, they have to find a 24-hour period where that vehicle is not parked there. Where could they park it?
Oh, there are plenty of locations where people can park oversized vehicles. There are parking lots that avail themselves to that. Truckers use them all the time for storage facilities. So there are other locations. I don't know of any specific. I would leave that up to staff. I mean, I don't know of any specific locations around here where they would be able to park it. So I don't know any specific locations, but I can tell you, generally speaking, there are locations that allow for specifically their parking lots that are available for short-term parking and long-term parking and storage of oversized vehicles.
They wouldn't really be storing it. I think the situation is they're visiting somebody
Understood.
and I would hate to see a situation where somebody says, well, you know, I can't visit my parents or my children because I now have to take my vehicle to a storage facility. If this is the case, maybe the city can come up with a list of places where these families could park their cars or their RVs. Again, it's not uncommon here or in any other city, whether you're a affluent city or less affluent city. A lot of people will take their RVs and park them because in front of the house because it's holiday time. They're visiting. Their grandma and grandpa are traveling the country and they're visiting their grandchildren. And we need to figure this out, how this can be done. I'm less concerned about whether there are leaves on the street during that time. I want to make sure families are able to enjoy what they should be doing. You're going to hear, well, what about a neighbor? My experience has been most of the time somebody will let the neighbor know, gee, grandma and grandpa are going to be visiting for the next 6 weeks. Work that out. Another question I have is, we do live in a world now where many individuals are independent business owners. They work and do deliveries from their home. These oversized vehicles are, and I'm not talking about a semi, I'm talking about, you know, something exceeding 22 feet, exceeding 8 feet in width, and exceeding 8 feet in height. That's their business. They load it up in the morning with whatever it is, and they go out and do what they do during the day, come back at night. Is there some type of an exemption we can work out for those individuals who can prove it's a business?
I mean, is there something? Sure. I mean, if the city wanted to, the city could always come up with a permit type program for oversized vehicles that belong to residents in the same way that we're doing with RVs. That is, they could lump them into the same type of a program, albeit with different sort of provisions. But again, this is really a balancing act, right? It's a balancing act of addressing the health and safety concerns with what I would expect to actually be a limited number of your residents who might be those types of owners who are utilizing oversized vehicles. Again, we looked at the sizes of the vehicles. If I can just flip it up here. We're looking at the size of vehicles. As a general rule, we're going way above what a typical full-size vehicle would be. Even the Sprinter vans or the Sprinter type vans are made by different manufacturers, but those are those kind of increased height vans that are often being used by contractors of all sorts, go up to about 8 feet. And so we're saying in excess of the 8 feet. So I would expect that you're going to have very few people, if any, that actually need to utilize the oversized type vehicles on a permanent type basis, and that we would want to have them parked in a residential area near their home to provide them with a permit for that type of thing. It's one thing when we're talking about recreational vehicles, which is much more common, whereas the non-recreational vehicle, oversized vehicles, I think is much less. And that's not to say that we shouldn't try and respond to all of our constituents within the community. But I think at the end of the day, again, it's a balancing act. And I think the idea is to try and diminish the health and safety hazards that we're looking at, along with addressing the lack that we already have. And this is in every community, again, as you indicated, Mr. Rue, every community faces the same types of issues when it comes to both the health and safety issues as well as the lack of on-street parking that's available to people nowadays. So I would think that there's probably few people that would actually fall within the category that would need an additional exception for these types of things, and potentially creating a program like that could invite people to go, oh, if I can get a permit, let me continue to go buy those types of vehicles and bring them into our residential areas to park them. But to answer your question, if the city wanted to, yes, the city could create a permit program, very similar to what we're doing with RVs.
I think it might benefit those people who are independent business owners. Another question as far as the RV, the people get hung up in traffic. They plan to be here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They don't get here until 2 in the morning. They park on the street. They park the RV, they're visiting. How do they get the permit? They have to go online at 2 a.m. and do this?
Are you talking about for the RVs? Yes, that would be the idea, is that they would be available for people to be able to get. And I think the city staff is still looking into who the potential vendors can be. But I can tell you from other jurisdictions that I work with that there are programs that you can do which are all online, and either they provide you a QR code that you could just put in the window and just on any strip of paper, and it can just go in, and then traffic control officers can go and they can read the QR code, or they're just literally registered based off the vehicle license plate, and cities will have license plate recognition systems, so they don't need to print out anything at all. Once they register it online, it's automatically in the system, and our officers who have that license plate recognition will be able to access that system and be able to verify that it is registered. So that's one of the beauties of doing one of these online programs, is that you would have the ability to do it 24/7.
And I would say online, probably if what we're trying to do is be able to do it on your phone, so the property owner who has the ability to have their guest come at 2 a.m. in the morning can actually do it ahead of time and register it so that it can be done at any time. So we want it to be as easy as possible, and you can do almost anything with your phone now, and that's one of the goals we're shooting for.
And then my last question, I have others, but in the essence of time. Some people may have some type of a home emergency at 3 in the morning, the plumbing goes out. Their home is flooded. They call a plumber. Plumber has to park there. He's going to be there for several hours. 3 in the morning. Does he have to worry about getting a permit?
No, he's exempt. Well, let me back that up. Does he need to worry about getting a permit for the plumbing repairs or for the
No,
parking?
I'm talking about parking.
No, he would be exempt because he's providing a service to that location. So as long as he's parked within the block of where he's providing the service, and we do allow for exceptions if there's no available parking for them to park outside of that one block area. But as long as they're there providing a service, it wouldn't matter whether it's 3 a.m. in the morning or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Any hour they can do it, as long as they're servicing a location, they'd be allowed to be parked there without a permit.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Martinez, do you have, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez, do you have anything else to say? Questions?
Yeah, so one of the proposed additional parking regulations was parking within 50 feet of the intersection, but I didn't hear whether you said that was 24/7.
The 50 feet would be 24/7 for the oversized vehicles?
Okay.
Yes, and again, that's to, basically what the Assembly bill did is take kind of what we had already been talking about in our workshop back in '23 and make that into law for regular vehicles, but they did a 20-foot distance. We're saying, hey, look, with the big rigs, with the bigger size vehicles, we need a greater distance to still get the same idea. So that would be 24/7.
And we'll have signage.
There would be signage typically for the permanently located areas where we know. There'll be signage that'll be posted, typically entering into the city on the main areas like you would for other types of regulations. There will also be in certain areas, there'll be restrictions literally there. But for example, right now, under the state's daylighting law, there's no requirement for signage. There's
Right,
no
and I've noticed nobody seems to abide by that 20-foot restriction, and you know, it's still
So
a
remember,
hazard.
it's only on one side of the street that they're required to do it. The side that you're actually driving down is where they have to do it. If we go to, like, for example, just in looking at, I may have already passed it, so I won't go back to it, but I agree with you that there's still people who are not in compliance with the state daylighting law. There was a period of time where they were providing warnings to people, obviously leading up to the effective date of that, which was January 1st. But the issue with respect to it is even there's no requirement for cities to paint the curbs additional red. They're not required to go out and put signs. They passed a law. They expect people to know what our parking restrictions are. So we would be placing appropriate signage in areas of the city where the bigger size vehicles would see it. You typically see this in other areas. If you go into cities, for example, that completely prohibit oversized vehicles from parking on their public streets, you'll have it at the major entryways into the city, a singular signs at each of those locations that says no vehicles over this size or this weight or this height, weight, length, width can park out on our public streets, applicable 24/7. And that'll be a sign on the major entryways where they'd be coming into the city. So I'm not saying that we would have a sign up at every block saying the 50 feet because it's like the state daylighting law. We would expect people to know that. But there would be other signage advising people upon entering into the city about some of the other restrictions.
Okay, and the reason I ask is because I figured if we're gonna put up a 50-foot, notice on these major intersections, maybe we could add the 20-foot daylighting rule to it as
course.
well. Because I live right by the high school, and it is so, so dangerous
It is.
pulling out of my street just because everyone parks right up on the sidewalk. So I can't imagine you're gonna have people following the 50-foot rule when they're not following the 20-foot rule. So the signage, in my opinion, would be beneficial, at least in those major
Absolutely.
areas.
And city can obviously roll out other types of educational programs to advise once the ordinance is passed, or even before its effective date, because it wouldn't go into effect for 30 days after the second reading or after the adoption.
I love
They'd
that
be
idea.
able to provide some type of educational campaign during that period as well.
Great. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Great, and so how's this, I know we're going back to enforcement, so we need to put signs up. Am I correct, Ed, or Mike? The signs need to go up. We gotta set up this
Set up the permit system. Yeah.
So when do you think all that's gonna happen? Is there, if we prove it in 2 weeks, got 30 days, we're looking at,
Well, there's no target date in terms of trying to get that permit up and running, but we're exploring the ideas, and we'll bring forth something to you guys to see what we come up with. I don't know how long that'll take, but as I said earlier, we want it to be as easy as be able to use your phone
Right.
and easy enforceable. But before it becomes effective, we'll go through some public education campaign
Right.
to make sure that either on the website, maybe through our electronic message boards, as well as maybe inserts on some of the mailings that we set out to notify the public and give them a grace period that gives them an idea of when enforcement will begin. And hopefully that'll be enough time for everybody to understand what's happening, so.
Okay, so this evening, again, we talked about enforcement, and this is not a proactive enforcement. This is reactive, not like the street sweeping program.
Right.
We will base it on complaints from citizens. We'll base it on serious health and safety issues that staff sees that has to be addressed. So that'll be the first goal of this program in terms of enforcement. Second one, we just talked about, we're gonna do a public education campaign.
Right.
To the community. We'll utilize our websites, social media, the sewer bills, let the public know when this is going to occur, once we have all the signs up.
Right.
And then I believe, Ed, you also mentioned probably the first 30 days, what's going to happen to be a citation issue, but the first 30 days, which is probably give a courtesy.
Yes, that is
A
correct.
courtesy first, the first 30 days, and then if they don't comply, then they'll get a citation, but so those first 30 days, we'll also be doing a education campaign for those folks who are not in compliance with this new code. And then I think it's important we do it correctly, so I also believe it's important that the city manager has discretion if there are some conditions that I consider to be marginal, not creating health and safety issues, that perhaps should be modified. I'm going to ask the city manager to have discretion for exceptions, and he'll be work with the Public Works Committee, which Mayor Pro Tem Martinez, myself, serve on the Public Works Committee, and so we will get an update on how this is being implemented, and then we'll hear from the city manager and staff if some changes that we should consider, and if that's the case, then we will come back to the city council at a later date, give an update, and also consider some proposed code changes. I kind of like that as part of the motion for this evening. Everybody's okay with that? Everybody's good with that? Councilman Rue.
A question I should have asked, do we know what the fee will be for these permits?
I don't believe we know it yet. I think the idea, again, is we're still looking at different vendors who can provide the services to the degree that we want them to be able to provide it. I can tell you, in other jurisdictions, the RV parking permits can range anywhere from $7 up to, I believe the highest I've seen them is between $50 and $75 for the long-term ones. Those are for cities that do them typically longer term, but typically for the cities that allow them for the 7 days, it might be $25 for a 7-day period of time, but I wouldn't know until we get the actual vendor.
Because I think it should be something reasonable for people, so they're not being gouged. We live in a world where it's very expensive right now with everything.
Staff agrees, and that's why we're analyzing the situation and coming up with the options that would potentially keep those costs down, as opposed to, again, doing paper printouts and things like that where we have to have more staff time.
I don't view this as something we should be making money on. I believe that it should be revenue neutral.
And just to let you know, it's meant to cover the cost of the program, not to make money.
Right. Thank you.
I'll second the mayor's motion.
Okay, well, let me do this first. Yeah, and I agree with Councilmember Rue. We should make this as minimal as possible in terms of fees. But I'll move for consider adoption, move for approval of ordinance number 25-1013, amending the Montclair Municipal Code to regulate parking and oversized vehicles. And to be, what declares this is a first reading. We'll have a second reading on December 15, be read by number and title only. In addition to that, my motion, it will include the provisions that we are going to be reactive, not proactive, that we're going to do the education campaign, including giving out violators, we'll give them the chance to cure without issuing citations, give the city managers some discretions to provide some exceptions, and then Public Works Committee will work with city staff, and then if changes, we'll come back to City Council for code changes. That's my motion. And I believe Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Martinez seconds that motion.
Yes.
We have a second, and then let's do electronic vote. Okay, that's approved 4-0. We will now move on to the second public hearing item. This is to consider ordinance number 25-1014, amending the zoning code regarding junior and accessory dwelling units. I believe staff is going to recommend that this item be continued to January 20 in these chambers. Am I correct, staff? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the public hearing and see if members of the public wish to address this item. If not, I'm going to close it. And then we'll just, again, we'll move to continue this item as a first reading to January 20, 2026. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Rue, and we'll do electronic vote. That's also adopted 4-0. Now we'll go on to the third public hearing item, which is to consider ordinance number 25-1016. This is to update the Montclair Municipal Code related to building codes in the city of Montclair. So again, I'll open the public hearing and we'll get staff presentation.
Mr. Mayor, I do need to read the first, the title of the first item.
Go ahead. Keep forgetting.
Okay, let me get back to that real quick. Okay, the first one, this was the oversized vehicle. Ordinance number 25-1013, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Montclair, amending Chapter 8.02, definitions, and adding Chapter 8.38, parking of oversized and recreational vehicles and unattached trailers on public streets and highways, of Title 8, Vehicles and Traffic of the Montclair Municipal Code.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll get the presentation on the third public hearing item. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Dutray and council members and staff. Tonight, I'd like to bring to you the triannual update of the California Building Code. This is my sixth triannual code adoption here in Montclair. And when adopted, the code updates will go and take effect January 1st, 2026. There are 12 parts to the California State Building Code. And if you'd like to view any part of the code, they can be found online. And there are 2 sites listed there in your staff report. Or if you'd like to see the codes in person, they take up about 6 feet of dedicated shelf space in our building office. So in this cycle of the code changes, the energy code had the most changes that would affect new construction, while the building code had the least number of significant changes, and this is a change for us. Normally it's the other way around. In fact, all of the notable changes printed in the list of notable changes 7 of the 12 were from the Energy Code. So it shows that our codes are making great strides toward more efficient use of our resources in the structures that we build. And in the cycle of codes, address some increased safety in smaller homes such as ADUs. The California fires of the past few years brought new regulations for greater fire-resistant building materials such as roofing materials. So the new codes are continually evolving to make where we live and work safer. So if you have any questions about any of the notable items or changes in the building code, I will do my best to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. Again, this is an open public hearing. Any members of the public wish to address the city council? This is your opportunity to do so. Seeing none, we'll close it. Any council members have any questions? I see none. If so, can I get a motion? Come on, Xavier, Councilman Mendez, you gonna try it? Go for it.
I will make a motion to move for approval.
I believe for ordinance number 25
25-1016, amending specific chapters of Title 10 of the Montclair Municipal Code related to adoption of building codes to regulate construction in the city of Montclair.
And this will be declared as a first reading, and it will have a second reading on December 15.
Oh,
I can say that for you, and then it'll be read by number and title only.
be read by number and title only.
Can I get a second motion? Second by Council Mayor Pro Tem Martinez. Keep calling you council member. I don't know why. Or me now. Okay, let's do electronic vote. Okay, everybody voted? Yep. All right, 4-0. Okay, consent calendar. Mr. Rue, Mr. Starr, you wish to pull the consent calendar? No? Am I right? Nobody? How about my left? Nobody? Can I get a motion on the consent calendar?
I will make a motion for the consent calendar as presented.
All right, can I get a second?
A second.
Got a second by Council Member Mendez. We'll do electronic vote. Four zero, approved. Go to communications. I'm assuming Marcia's here. There she is. She's ready to go.
I am. Thank you, Mayor, council members. I just wanted to mention a few items, reminding everyone that our donation bins for the holiday food and toy basket program are at several locations around Montclair, including here at City Hall, our senior center, the recreation center, Fire Station 1, and the police department. Donations will continue to be accepted through Thursday, December 11th. We have already received a very generous donation of toys for our younger kids, so if you are interested in donating a gift for a preteen or teen, that would be appreciated. Sports balls, craft kits, cosmetics, gift cards, or movie tickets are suggested options. And if you have a large donation or need a pickup or would like to make a monetary donation, please contact me after the meeting. And many thanks to all those who have donated so far. I want to welcome everyone to attend the Holly Jolly event that will be taking place this Thursday, December the 4th, from 3 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. Activities include a snow play area, sledding, vendors, and a food truck favorites at Alma Hoffman parking lot from 3 to 8:30 p.m. The tree lighting ceremony will begin at 6 p.m. in front of the youth center. Also, free photos with Santa, hot cocoa, cookies, and letters to Santa from 6:30 to 8:30 while supplies last will be available. Lastly, gift lights in memory or in honor of a loved one will also be available for purchase, and we look forward to seeing everyone there. The police and fire departments will be holding food and toy drives at Costco to support the holiday food and toy program. Drives will be held at the Montclair Costco on this Friday, December the 5th from 10 to 2, and again on December the 12th. We have a suggested list of needed items available the day of the event to help make your shopping even easier. The Community Activities Commission invites you to submit your entry for the Holiday Home Decoration Contest. Entry applications are available on the city website and are due this Friday, December 5th at 6 p.m. Winners will be announced at an upcoming city council meeting. And flyers about all these events are on the counter here at the chamber's entry right behind me. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Dashing through Montclair, do we need, go ahead. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm here to, again, remind the public and council of our Dashing Through Montclair event, which will be occurring this Saturday, December 6th, from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. throughout the city of Montclair. Santa and Mrs. Claus will be on the sleigh, escorted by police vehicles. I just want to remind the public to follow the route, and they can find the route on the city's website. And also, the route is altered every year to try to cover the most amount of streets possible. We would love to cover every single street in Montclair, but we cannot. We can only do so much. Just please follow the route and join us at the stops if you're unable to, if you don't live on one of the routes. And we look forward to the event. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think as far as Dashing Through Montclair, everybody's going to be there, all four of us? Yeah, everybody's there? And then we're supposed to be there at 11:30, right, at the station? The latest.
That should be sufficient time.
11:30, we're supposed to, and then for the Holly Jolly event on Thursday, I think everybody's gonna be there as well, all four of us. And we're all supposed to be there by 5:45.
5:45, the latest, yes.
It starts at 6 o'clock. And you gave us instructions to keep our speeches short?
Yes, I did.
Okay, or else we'll be naughty, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And, Santa will be there, so.
Santa will be there, so, okay, we don't be naughty. Thank you. City Attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the council to meet in closed session. There are 3 items indicated in the agenda, but we will not be meeting on number 1 or 3. Those matters aren't ready to come to the council yet. So the one matter I'm asking you to meet on is in regard to potential litigation pursuant to the code section indicated. Other than those items, I have nothing else this evening.
Thank you. City Manager?
No items.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to state, I know we've been trying to work on the City Council Policy Manual. We were going to try to have the workshop this evening, but one of the council members asked not to take place this evening. So we decided to punt it, and we're going to punt it to January, February. We'll come back at a workshop since we have one more year, one more meeting before the year is over. Second of all, I just want to recognize Pearl Harbor Day during the month of December. Third of all, last week or the week before, excuse me, City Manager and I attended a meeting in Ontario, and at that meeting, the District 8 Caltrans director was there, and he provided some good news, which would work with Montclair in terms of trying to maintain our freeway on-ramps, off-ramps, also to deal with debris issues, homeless encampments. So that was very encouraging news that we had with that meeting with the director. I do know that at SBCTA, I believe the bids for the landscape improvements on the I-10 freeway are in now, and so I do believe at this time that that's actually on the agenda for Thursday for discussion. So I do anticipate that we'll begin the landscape improvements sometime next year. They're supposed to be in phases, so I don't know where Montclair is. We're in the early phase, the later phase, the middle phase, not sure, even though we're on the west side of the county. So there's that information. Finally, I just want to recognize staff, Public Works Department, the mediums on Moreno Street between Central and Monte Vista. We're going to put some mulch on it to dress it up a little bit, make it look a little better. So I appreciate staff doing that. So I'll begin with Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
I have nothing, thank you. I guess it wasn't on, yeah, I don't have anything.
How about, you threw me off. Councilmember Mendez.
Just a couple things. Just first off, For those I didn't see on Thanksgiving, I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving and happy holidays. Look forward to seeing everybody December 4th, Thursday, for the tree lighting ceremony, and December 6th for the Dashing Through Montclair. I don't know why, but I thought it was on the 13th, and that's the day that I have to leave early. So I guess I'll get to be there the whole day. So I'll be there on the 6th also. So looking forward to that. That'll be my first one. I've seen it many times and participated, but it'll be the first one getting a ride in the back. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rue.
Thank you. Yes, I hope everybody had a very good Thanksgiving. I want to specifically thank Assemblymember Michelle Rodriguez for her turkey drive, where she distributed over 750 turkeys to families in our region very much in need. Also thanks Senator Susan Rubio, who had a turkey drive on Sunday, the 23rd. She distributed almost 2,000 turkeys to families in need in this area. The need is growing, as you know. I helped on the 22nd with CDC, a church here in Montclair, and we actually ran out of food before we ran out of people. So be mindful of your neighbors, see where you can help, see what you can do to pitch in. And the mayor mentioned Pearl Harbor, and that will be this coming Sunday. It'll be 84 years since the Day of Infamy, as President Roosevelt called it. And in the ensuing 84 years, the Empire of Japan and the United States of America have become very close allies and friends. We depend on each other. And our tourism goes both ways. We may have fought a very, very horrible battle and war, and it was not without tremendous sacrifice. But 84 years later, we see that peace between our two nations has been able to hold for decades, and I hope it will hold for decades to come.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate Councilman Rue bringing up the pantries. I know the CDC, the Christian Development Center, run by pastors Don and Ethel Rucker, had their food drive. Obviously, Councilman Rue talked about it. I just want to recognize my wife, Our Lady of Lourdes. She coordinated Our Lady of Lourdes, their food drive. They had about 210 people, individuals come by. They had obviously turkeys and other protein. And then I know that Arco in the corner of Monte Vista and Holt, they were giving out free turkeys 2 Sundays ago. At least over 100 turkeys, maybe 150 turkeys they gave away, maybe closer to 200. So I just want to recognize that. Okay, we'll go to closed session. Thank you.